In today's Locked On Pelicans, Dejounte Murray is out after suffering a left hand fracture. I'll tell you how long to expect him sidelined and how the Pelicans can be okay while he misses time, but also one area where they really could struggle. It's the Friday episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans and NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Friday here, and this is not a show we want to be doing. We're going to be talking about a big injury for the Pelicans with Dejounte Murray fracturing his left hand. Most Pelicans think get a big opening night win, lose a key player for how long? I'll tell you in a minute really what to expect with this injury. Then we're going to take a look at the defense and how well they did the other night against the Chicago Bulls and how Murray impacted that. What changes now that he's going to be out? Then we've got updates on Zion, on Trey, and I'm going to give you some things to keep an eye on for against the Blazers in tonight's game. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And don't forget about the Locked On Pelicans newsletter that you can sign up for. It comes to you daily over at lockedondaily.com. We're back in the home studio. No more traveling. Oh, it feels good to be back using the bigger mic here and everything. So we got a jam-packed show for you today. So let's jump into everything here. The Dejounte Murray injury. The Pelicans announced that Dejounte Murray suffered a left hand fracture during the fourth quarter of Wednesday night's game against the Chicago Bulls. Medical imaging taken after the game confirmed the injury. Here's the key to this. He will be out indefinitely, and further updates will be appropriately provided. Out indefinitely sounds scary, but right now, that doesn't mean so much. What to expect here is probably somewhere on the 8-week timeline, 6 to 8 weeks minimum, but honestly, probably closer to 8. The reason it's indefinite right now is, from what I've been told, he is looking at second, third, fourth opinions, different options for how to treat this. If it's a broken bone and they haven't given us specifics about what it is, it could require surgery. It could just be time to heal. We don't know just yet until he makes that decision, until he and the team, I guess, make that decision. So right now he is out indefinitely, and that sounds scary, but it also could be one of those things where in a week or two, once a decision is made, they come back and they go, okay, it's 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever it is, it might be. No matter what, this sucks. This was the big offseason acquisition for the Pelicans. They traded some depth. Dyson Daniels looked great the other night for the Atlanta Hawks. They traded Larry Nance Jr., who was a key piece for the team, along with picks. This is not ideal for this team whatsoever. When you watched Murray in that game against the Chicago Bulls, he did not shoot the ball well whatsoever in that game, going 4 of 15. But the assists, 10 of them, the rebounding were key. We talked about it in last night's show for the everydayers. Pelicans grabbed 80% of available defensive rebounds. That's a really good number. Having a guard with Murray's size, getting you 8 of those is very key to that. The offense looked a lot better with him out there on the court, especially in the second half when he got into a rhythm, able to run that offense. They needed something like that. One of the big offseason acquisition, or the reason it was the big offseason acquisition, was one of the things they wanted to address was a point guard. And Murray looked like a point guard in the game the other night. This is a big blow, and it just sucks. Pelicans fans deserve a break. This is just the most classic thing. We get excited for about an hour after the game, and then boom, this news comes down. And it looks like he did it in the fourth quarter. I'm not going to, it could have been 1 or 2 plays you can kind of see. There's one where he fell. There's another where he got his hand caught on Josh Giddey, another reason to hate Giddey, and all of that. It's just, it sucks. He was excited to be here. He was a leader for the team vocally and on the court, organizing the offense. Look, there's a reason why guys like Jordan Hawkins and Yves Missi looked so good. Now, part of it's just their talent, but also a point guard to set you up is a really big deal. When Missi stepped into the game with Dejounte Murray, you could see the pick and roll game between those two. Does that go out the window now? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see what it looks like with Zion Williamson, and more on that in the third segment of today's show. But this is just a blow. There's no other way to put it. But look, they can definitely get by with the talent they have. This isn't like an, oh no, we suck again sort of thing. It sucks. The situation sucks. But there's enough talent here that they can still win games. They won 49 games last year without Dejounte Murray. They can definitely keep going forward. And with, maybe you could call them 2 easy games against the Portland Trail Blazers. That represents a realistic possibility of going 3-0. 2 games against the Warriors, who are struggling a little bit with losing Klay Thompson, who looks great for Dallas, by the way. 5-0, I wouldn't say is realistic, but it's on the table. CJ McCollum scored 23 points the other night. Brandon Ingram won the game for the Pelicans in that third and fourth quarter when he broke the Bulls' zone. And Zion Williamson is planning on returning. Again, more on that later. That's going to win you a lot of games. The defense, which we'll look at in the next segment here, can still be good. And look, if Hawkins and Missi, it's not like they need a point guard to be good. They can make an impact. Missi can still block shots. Hawkins is going to have tons of space with Zion, BI, and CJ out there. Yes, they're missing 2 of their 6 best players right now in Murray and Trey Murphy, but this is a team that still retains a lot of talent that looked pretty good against the subpar Chicago Bulls team the other night. I'm still optimistic about what they're going to be able to do, especially if what we saw from Missi is very real, and it really looked like it did. We'll talk more about that next week on Locked On Pelicans after we get a couple more games here. Hawkins is still going to be a shooter and a scorer. Javonte Green, and I apologize for calling him Devontae Green. I think I don't know what it was. It was late. I was tired and was calling him Devontae Green in yesterday's show. It's Javonte Green playing that Najee Marshall role. He played really well. Those are guys that are just going to get more minutes in this, right? It's going to mean more minutes for Hawkins. It's going to mean more minutes for Green. It's going to mean more minutes for Jose Alvarado. I trust all those guys right now. And so I think New Orleans can be okay. Does this lower their ceiling? Yes, absolutely. I was on WWL radio yesterday talking about this with Mike Detillier, and he made a really good point of, you never want this to happen, but maybe it's better just to get it out of the way in the regular season. If he comes back and the team makes the playoffs and Murray's available, that's the most important thing. Zion's coming back. They looked good without Zion. I think they can be okay. It's not great. This definitely hurts them, but there's enough talent here that they can weather this storm. But it sounds like it's going to be a long storm. This could be a 2-month injury. But if it's just a healing thing, everybody heals differently. Some heal fast, some heal slower. We're going to find out what it is with Dejounte Murray and what treatment options he's going to go with going forward. But that's why he's listed out indefinitely. So this does have, I think, the biggest impact on the defense. And that could really hurt them. And that isn't great given what the defense did last night. I want to look at that coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action. So with over 10 million members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times. I'm going to repeat that again. 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and yes, Louisiana. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. If you wanted to look at these games tonight, there's Anthony Edwards, more or less on 25.5 points. Yves Missi for this game against the Blazers, over under 8.5 points for him. You can get in on all of the action with Prize Picks. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast coming to you like nobody else does. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And now, the Locked On Pelicans daily free newsletter. One-stop ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pelicans newsletter. It's been a lot of fun writing these, a great way to interact with y'all. You get it right into your inbox. And let's also send a message to those big market teams that New Orleans shows up. We're all actually tracking the subscribers. I want to beat those bigger market teams, beat LA, beat Boston, all of those. Maybe Houston, too, would be a good one as well, given they're a division rival, or Dallas. So please go sign up to the Locked On Pelicans newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. Okay, let's look at the defense here, because that was a really important part of the win for the New Orleans Pelicans in the game against the Chicago Bulls. And the numbers were pretty astounding here. In that game, they had 15 steals. That allowed them to get 29 points in the fast break. They had 30 points off turnovers. Those two kind of often go hand in hand here. Compare that to the Chicago Bulls, who only had 15 fast break points. They basically doubled the fast break points. They won that battle by 14 in a game that they won 123-111. It's a 12-point margin of victory there. 14 of that coming in the fast break. This is an area where New Orleans can have a really big advantage. On a night when you're missing Zion Williamson, when some of your offense is going to be missing, lacking, offense being a problem for New Orleans, particularly in the past year, a way you can really make up for that is by forcing turnovers, getting out and running, and just scoring easy buckets in transition. When you look at the efficiency of different types of offense, there's half-court offense, there's transition offense, there's free throw lines and stuff like that too. But let's look at those two, half-court and transition. Transition has by far the more points per play than half-court does, because you usually have a man advantage. In New Orleans, with some of the shooters they have in Hawkins, in CJ, in Ingram at times, and with Trey Murphy when he's healthy, you can take threes and make threes in transition, and it's a really big deal. You can also just get to the rim and score that way too, and that's totally fine. By forcing 21 turnovers on Chicago, they were just able to get out and run. In terms of points off turnover, New Orleans only had 11. The Chicago Bulls got 8 out of those. You know, when you force a turnover and then go score it on the other end, beyond just the fast break points, that's 0 points for your opponent, points for you. It's a zero-sum game right there. That's a really big deal. Empty trip for them, not an empty trip for your team. So being able to get out and run and score is going to be a way that you just don't need to worry about half-court offense. New Orleans got out and ran a good bit last year. This is what they want to do. They were very good at forcing steals, turning the ball over, forcing turnovers last year, and then getting out and running. And for a team that needs the easy offense, should need the easy offense, everyone needs it. This is important, and they did it in the game against the Chicago Bulls. Now, Murray played a part in that. He didn't have the steals. He had just one in that game. You know, Herb Jones had 2. Ingram had 2. Tice had 2 here. But it was also Javonte Green off the bench, got the name right there, with 4. They can still make up for this. Murray's key on this because he can at least slow down the point of attack or a wing player, depending on who he and Herb Jones are guarding, and allows others to come over and maybe pick the ball or grab the ball when you trap somebody. So this hurts them. This really does hurt the team. And this was an area after, you know, if you listen to yesterday's show, I wanted to talk about the defense in today's episode because something kind of struck me about it. When you have a shot blocker like Yves Missi, or just a rim protector, not Yves Missi, it's been one game, even though I'm high on him now. You know, you can gamble a little bit more. These guards, Herb Jones, Dejounte Murray, can feel they can gamble for steals because, well, we've got someone to erase some of our mistakes back there. That's what the Minnesota Timberwolves do. You got Gobert that just erases mistakes, and then it allows them to just be super duper aggressive, force those turnovers, get out and run. And look, if they mistime a steal or whatever, well, you got someone to just, you know, deter the shot at the rim, and you kind of, they're going to reset and you'll be okay. This gets hit by that. Now, maybe Missi's not as effective because you need a point guard to help him on offense. And if he can't get out there on offense or do much, is he going to play? It's Willie Green, so yes, probably. So, you know, with the defense that he would have. So I think I'll still be out there. But this definitely hurts the team. Are they going to be able to get as many steals? Are they going to be able to get out and run as much? Look, they did it last year without Murray. They had Dyson Daniels, who was a part of that, but he missed time with injury. So we're going to find out. You have some, weaker opponents coming up in 2 games against Portland and then 2 against the Warriors. And I'm not high on this Warriors team whatsoever, really. But you can still get out and run. Will it be to the tune of 15 turnovers, 29 fast break points? I doubt it. And I think that worries me a little bit here. But I think, maybe it drops New Orleans from a top 3 defense to still being in the top 10. They finished 6-7, depending on where you look, the past 2 years. So I think they can still be okay. When it comes to this, I don't think this is going to completely derail the defense. And if Missi does keep playing at the level that he did in his first game, then you're going to be just fine, because that shot blocking ability is not something that New Orleans has had. Daniel Tice, I thought, played well too. He blocked a couple of shots. I told y'all, even though he's 6'8", that is a tough dude. A tough dude. And he went out and played pretty well and played taller than he is, played tougher than what you would expect from him. But this definitely is going to impact the defense. And that was an area that New Orleans really shined and excelled in that game against Chicago. I don't think they'll be able to do it exactly to that level, particularly if Herb Jones has a bad whistle or something like that potentially too. But that was something that was just eye-opening in the game the other night. In that big win, that it's one game. It's one game, so let's not overreact to some of the numbers here. But New Orleans turned Chicago Bulls over on 17.8 of their possessions. That would rank second in the league right now if we were actually looking at this sort of thing. They did a pretty good job when it came to that. And now, maybe not. On the defensive side of the ball too, defensive rebounding is defense. That terminates, to use David Griffin's language, terminates possessions, ends possessions by gobbling up those defensive rebounds. Pelicans grabbed 79.5% of available defensive rebounds. That was the 6th best of all the teams that have played so far on Tuesday and Wednesday. This is going to hurt both of those areas. It puts more of an onus on Herb Jones. It'll test the defense a little bit here. New Orleans, under Willie Green, has proven that they are going to be a good defensive team no matter what, that they will force turnovers. And if Missi keeps developing, more on him next, then I do think they'll be in an okay position. But it hurts. This injury just sucks. It's just the most New Orleans thing. It's the most New Orleans thing to see this kind of situation happen, and I absolutely hate it. For Murray, for you, the fans, for me to cover the team, all of that just sucks all around. But we'll see if the defense keeps afloat. And playing Portland twice, I think, can definitely help when it comes to that. So coming up next, we got updates on Zion Williamson. This is a big one. Trey Murphy as well. And we're going to look at what to expect against Portland. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked on Pelicans. All right, today's episode of Locked on Pelicans is brought to you by America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. NBA fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. The Pelicans right now are 5.5-point favorites over the not the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Portland Trail Blazers. I feel like that seems pretty good. I told you I like the -7.5 on opening night against the Chicago Bulls as well. -5.5 even without Murray because they're getting Zion Williamson back. I feel pretty good about that one. So you can put $5 down on that, and then you're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And all you have to do is go to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 10,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And now for your second listen, the Locked On Saints podcast. They are there also Monday through Friday, breaking down everything black and gold, taking on I was going to call them San Diego Chargers, but Los Angeles Chargers this weekend. Maybe you're going to be at Taylor Swift instead here in New Orleans. But Ross Jackson's going to make sense of everything black and gold. Can they get back on track and turn the season around? Or are we looking for draft picks He's going to let you know over the Locked On Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Don't forget the daily Locked On Pelicans newsletter over at lockedondaily.com. It's going to go right into your inbox. You're going to get some Pelicans news, league news as well. We've got a couple of great writers that are going to give you just the biggest story around the NBA in your inbox. It's great. One-stop shopping. Links to other really good Pelican stuff as well is going to be in there also. So that's been really cool to see as well. So let's talk some good injury news, and let's lead with the biggest one, and that's Zion Williamson here. He was a full go at practice on Thursday. I expect him to play against the Portland Trailblazers. I'm just like forgetting everything here today. These 2 games against Portland, he should be playing. I don't see any issue. He traveled with the team. He went through the full workout. He'll be fine. I expect him to dominate this game. That's the most important thing. Zion playing, his team's still going to be okay no matter what else is going on when it comes to them with injuries or anything like that. Trey Murphy, we also have an injury update on him, and it's a positive one. This one comes from the Pelicans here. Trey Murphy III, who sustained a right hamstring strain on October 2nd, has progressed well through the first phase of rehabilitation. He's been cleared to begin the return to play conditioning phase of the rehab process. Further updates will be provided in approximately 2 weeks. If you listen to the show where we talked about Trey's injury, we said this is what it was going to be. It was going to be the 4 weeks, then he gets 2 weeks, 4 weeks, then he's going to be reevaluated, and then he was going to need 2 weeks to probably ramp up to play. This is conditioning. When you have a hamstring, you can't really run. You can't do scrimmages or anything like that. It's a lot of just like body work and then stationary shooting. That's really about it. Trey has progressed through that. It sounds like the hamstring is going to be in good shape to slowly ramp up. You don't want to do it too quickly, because if you do suffer an injury setback, which happens somewhat often with hamstrings, we know it with Zion Williamson, that can set you back even further. So you've got to be really careful with these sorts of injuries. Pelicans are going to definitely do that. They'll probably go through some conditioning, then him just doing more on-court work than 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, 5-on-5 through full contact. That's when they'll clear him to play. They'll likely try and do this pretty rapidly if he's progressing at the rate that it sounds like he is. But we should be seeing Trey Murphy back on the court probably around mid-November is what I would be expecting. Maybe on the front end of that. Second week in November, something along those lines would be pretty good, I think, for the Pelicans here. So 2 games against the Portland Trail Blazers. We've got Friday here and then Sunday against Portland as well. To me, these games are a true test of Yves Missi. That was a really great performance against a subpar Chicago Bulls team. Let's admit that, right? This isn't like going to be a great Bulls team. They don't have elite big men down low that are going to kill you by posting up or certain things like that. Missi now goes against Deandre Ayton, who's a bigger, bruisier, more traditional kind of center. A guy that wants to play with his back to the basket, play in the pick and roll. This is going to be the true test of Yves Missi on the defensive side of the ball. Whether he's starting or not, I don't know. You could make the argument that he should in this sort of game. But if he can go out there and hold his own against Deandre Ayton, someone that a lot of Pelicans fans want to trade for, he can hold his own against Ayton. You can probably hold your own against a lot of people. I saw someone in the comments the other day when we were kind of looking at the center being like, what are you going to do against Nikola Jokic? What are you going to do against this other guy? Look, you can't really do anything against those type of players. No one has the answer to stop Jokic. It's why he's a 3-time MVP, won a title. You don't expect to stop those guys. You've got to beat the Denver Nuggets in other ways. But you are going to play a lot of DeAndre Aytons and those type of players, and you want to be able to neutralize them, take them out of the game. This is going to be the test for Missi, in my opinion, on the defensive side of the ball. You can hold up against there. Do the Pelicans need to trade for a center? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes. What I'm also looking for this weekend is, how do Zion and Ingram coexist? Ingram played really, really well, great in the game on Wednesday, but there were too many mid-range shots. Bad mid-rangers. He went 4 for 12 from mid-range. Everywhere else was really good. That was an area that he struggled. That's an area that kills spacing with Zion Williamson. Those shots also aren't going to totally be there, with Zion out there when the paint's going to be a little bit more crowded and you're trying to shoot in there. So this is going to be the test of those two, right? This is a subpar team, these 2 games against the Portland Trailblazers. You got to win these. 1-1's fine, but really, really, really going 2-0 would be important, especially with that Murray injury, which means you'll lose some other games that you maybe wouldn't. I want to see how they coexist. Ingram really, I thought it took a while for him to get into the game against the Chicago Bulls and then really excelled. And he excelled when he started taking those threes, those, above the break 3-point line threes. When he started breaking that Bulls zone defense by shooting those threes, that was really important. When he started playing with that efficient style, that more efficient shot profile that David Griffin was on the broadcast talking about them wanting to do, or him to do. When he did that, the game opened up, and before that, it was a little bit of a slog. If he's not taking those shots, and we've seen him do this where he has a really hyper-efficient game and then doesn't take a three the next one, this is the true test. It's one thing to be able to take mid-rangers without Zion and all of that. With Zion there, that's not going to work. These two games are going to be the test. You're not going to have, a hellacious defense hounding you or anything like that. These are just games where you should be able to get these live ball reps that you need and really try and improve in that area. This is like a good opportunity just to try and figure it out in a way that you normally wouldn't get to during the regular season. And that's partially because, you're playing a bad Portland team here. So I'm very curious to see, can they coexist? Are we still going to get the good Brandon Ingram? I'm hopeful we will. I've said I thought he was really going to come into the season looking a little bit different. Then he posted that you don't appreciate me stuff. And then, overall it's been good so far. So I'm going to be really curious what ends up happening here. But I really, really hope that we see the best version of Ingram coexisting around Zion Williamson, because that's what this team absolutely is going to need to be doing. And these are two really good games to try and figure that out. And I'm excited to watch those. And we'll be recapping them here. We might do a bonus show. I'm not sure this weekend or not. I'm going to try and do more of those this weekend. There are going to be weeks where you get 7 episodes of Locked On Pelicans. There will be some when it's 5. I'm going to try and be as consistent as possible. Try and get stuff out for you, though. After just spending literally a week driving from Los Angeles to New Orleans. Need a little bit of a break, though. But it's nice to be back. We're back, albeit all the games going forward. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please subscribe to the Locked On Pelicans newsletter over at LockedOnDaily.com. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. And as always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. And I'll be back with y'all on Monday, maybe a bonus show over the weekend. See y'all next time.